So I'm very excited to give you a tour of our patch panel software. We built this to solve a major pain point in our studio, which is bloody cabling. And although you're using these things, I'm using quite a lot of these in the studio, which is labels on both ends. You still don't have that holistic view and centralized place where you can track and trace everything and reconfigure stuff. And it's very important for myself because I forget where everything is. It's also important when you bring someone else in to help you to have that really deep understanding of all of the cabling situation in a studio like ours. We are setting up these bad boys. We have two of them, the HyperDeck 8K. We want to make sure that we track things properly. We have a Blackmagic Video Hub, basically an SDI switcher, let's call it like that. You'll see it on my screen here. Just to give you a sense of the taxonomy and the classification in the software, we are able to manage routing devices. This is your basically SDI hubs, your HDMI, your audio interfaces, and so on. And as you can see, I can create multiple audio, KVM, HDMI, SDI, and others. There's a couple of features in these switchers, and we'll add more features as the time goes by. I've created our studio Blackmagic Video Hub 40 by 40, which is a 40 SDI in and 40 SDI out interface. And you also have the notion of I/O devices, input output devices, and this could be pretty much anything. It can be your smart view monitors, it can be your cloud store, absolutely everything. It can even be your cameras. And of course, as per our case today, the HyperDeck 8K recorders will have 4 SDI inputs that we will connect to 4 SDI output in the video hub. We'll plug this in, power it, and then attach the SDI cables and attach the SDI cables on the video hub. We'll create that connectivity. We'll create these devices in patch panel first, and then we will create that connectivity with the video hub, basically the SDI switcher. And then on the other end, we'll also connect it to basically an input. So what signal? These are recorders, right? So we're bringing in signals. Where are we bringing those signals from? And in our case, we actually record in the studio with 3 cameras, and we do green screen virtual production. So we will have 3 camera signals, the green screen that we need to put in here, and also the fill, the keyed layer, because we have real-time keyers. So I'll start by creating an I/O device. Again, I don't need an additional routing device, but just as an example, we have the notion of studios. So if you're on a paid plan, we have a free plan with 100 ports. If you're on a paid plan, you also have the notion of studios. You can create multiple studios if you own multiple studios and manage all of your devices per studio. But anyways, let's skip back to this. And then I can either upload a picture of the device, or this is a feature that I absolutely love, I can find a picture online. And this helps, like all of these pictures here that you see for all of the devices that we have in our studio have not been downloaded off the internet and then uploaded. It would have taken me ages. This is a really cool feature. It basically takes the device name that you put in there and it searches the internet for devices like that. I can search more. That seems more reasonable in terms of the framing. Like the other one, I can select it. It added there quickly, snappy. You don't need to deal with downloads and uploads and so on. And then I can create the device. And now the Blackmagic Video Hub 120 by 120 is created. And I can already edit stuff in here and manage ports. We'll go through that in a second. First, let's do things this way around and create an actual device. And as I mentioned, these are the Blackmagic HyperDeck 8K. And then the label is, for example, we have these 4K HyperDecks and they're label 1, 2, 3, 4. This is, I would say, this is okay for me, but best practices here, create labels that are descriptive. So in this case, I would put program, wide cam, close up 1, close up 2, or cam 2, cam 3, cam B, cam C, and so on. So try to be more descriptive with the labels, because if you think about your studio growing, even if you're a one-man band at the moment, if your studio is growing and you're getting people on, you want to make sure that they understand what's what. But let's do it the right way. Okay, again, I'll do the same thing, find image. Now the cool thing is, even if I don't like this, because it's too long, I don't need to, I can change it back after I search for the image. Extreme, I think it's called Extreme 8K. Okay, find device. Yeah, there you go, there's a picture. Okay, and now create device, and that added there. We can create the second one and call, as you can see, it has the label as well, and call this layer. And I know that this saves layer. Find images. Now these are created. I basically can do two things here, and I'll show you both because there's multiple workflows that you can use in order to create ports, register ports for these devices, and then link ports. So I'll show you the first and probably the most natural way that you would be inclined to create ports for these devices. I'll go to this one, and then I have device ports. So this is the details. You can edit the details here. You can change the name, labels, change the image and everything. But you can also go to device ports, and here you can add ports. We want 4 to register 4 SDI ins. If I say SDI in 1, I can put notes if I want to. I'm not going to do that now. I'll just create the port. So you have SDI out on top, and then you have SDI in, which are of interest to us. We're not going to use the SDI outs. We don't need the SDI outs at this point. I have all of the ports that I'm interested in created here. I'll show you how we can create ports in the workflow of associating a video hub SDI in or SDI out with a port from this device, from this HyperDeck. So I'll go through the process of creating ports like video hub switchers, routing devices ports, and associating a I/O device port with a routing device port. So if I go to manage ports, so as you can see, I already created for this device 40 inputs and 40 outputs. But taking this example, I've created the 8K HyperDeck, the I/O device, and also its ports. So I can say I want these input ports on this recorder to be connected to these 4 output ports that I'm creating for this video hub. This workflow where you're creating basically the ports of the video hub of the routing device while you're associating I/O device ports to them is very useful if you already have, like us, you have already everything installed, you already know what goes where, but it also simplifies the workflow here, because what we just done with creating the I/O device and the I/O ports, you can actually create here in the add routing device port. As you'll see, if we go through this, we talked about these are going to be routing device ports out, right? I can create the port number here. So I already have port 40. I can create port 41. I can go to device, and I can either select an existing I/O device. In our case, we created both of the HyperDeck 8K. Now, if I don't select from the list and I leave create new device, I can actually create a new device here. As I mentioned, in the add routing port, you can actually create all of that, the device and the port that you need this routing port to be connected to, straight into this field. But for our case, we already created them, so I can select them from the list. So I'll go to HyperDeck 8K1. Again, I can either select a port, I/O port that I've created, and you saw me creating them, or in the case of the second one, we don't actually have any ports. There's no ports available. And I can start, I can create here the first port. So now if I do this and create add port, I can also add nodes. Of course, with everything I can add nodes. So I create the port. All right, so you can see in the output 41, and you have the Blackmagic HyperDeck Extreme 8K 2, basically the second device, which is for layers, and you also see that I have created an SDI in 1, right? And I'll do the same for, like, say, port 42. You can visualize how quickly I can create these devices and ports while creating ports for the routing device. And now for a quick check, if I go back and I go to the HyperDeck 2, if I go to ports, you see that these 2 ports have been created, and you'll notice something else underneath, which is really useful. Let's say you have the HyperDeck and it's all running, but you're like, I don't even know what's connected to it. Let me try to figure out. You can just go here, open the HyperDeck Extreme 8K, and you can already see in the device ports that this is connected to Blackmagic Video Hub 40x40 in the output port 41 and 42, which again is very useful information to have. And we'll talk about the matrix in a second while we connect things. But we will move away from the creation. I just wanted to show you how you manage ports, because you can create as many input-output ports for your routing devices, but also associate the input-output devices that are connecting to these ports straight here, but also you can create them. But for this scenario where we're associating these, we already have the ports ready. They're already created in the outputs. We don't need these extra ports here. I'm just going to go ahead and delete them, and we can go ahead and associate the ports. Right, so normally when I bring new IO devices to connect to the video hub, the routing device, I would want to see if I have free ports. And then also, if I don't have free ports, is there anything that I can exclude? And this is our case right now, because we have 8 ports that we need to connect. Realistically, we only need 3, because we need 3 camera green screen and 3 camera layers. It'll be a luxury for us to have an extra 2. So we need 6, let's say, maximum 7. We don't have enough ports. So we have basically 5 free ports. And the way I can figure that out, so this will be output ports, right? Because remember, there's output signal that goes into an input device. I can check whether I have free ports in this screen where I'm managing the ports. So I can see 40s unallocated, 38, 37, and so on. So I can go over this list, but I can also look at manage routing, and I can easily see here which ports are free because they're not highlighted. We'll probably also have a quick filter here, which will just show you all of the free ports. And the same, I can easily see them, the output ports in the diagram, and I'll explain the diagram in a second. And what we decided that we're going to remove as cables from the routing device, the video hub, SDI out, are some of the Constellation 1ME SDI in. So we have the Constellation, the 8M Constellation, basically our switcher has up to 8 SDI ins. We've connected 6, but we wind up using only 3. SDI in 1, 2, 3 are connected to the program of the Ultimate, and then there's 3 that haven't been allocated to any source, right? So basically there's no signal coming into the Constellation SDI in 4, 5, 6. So we can just remove these and basically switch it to the HyperDecks. So the way we're going to do that, if we want to clear these outputs, is first of all, we're going to remove them from within. So we're going to remove them from the Constellation backend. What we'll do is we'll do it one by one. So we'll go to SDI in 4 in the Constellation, take the SDI cable out, then plug it into here, into the first HyperDeck Extreme into SDI in 1. And then we will go here on the screen, and on output 17, we will remove this. And the way we do this is by going back to device, manage ports, and in outputs, we'll get to output 17, which is this. And if I click on edit, right now this is selected and you see it autofill this. All I need to do here is basically in the device, change the device to the HyperDeck, and then change the port to the port SDI in 1. So that's what we're gonna do in a second. But first, let's plug this on. Right, so we'll start with getting those constellation inputs out. Oh, by the way, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, there's so much going on here, and I don't know if you can see this. Look at all of that. We have so many devices that there's so many cables, and it's very difficult to also label absolutely everything in and out. And the Video Hub does a terrible job at showing it, because it only shows you input number and output number. So, you know, at least now we have the patch panel software to help us stay sane. Because when I look at this, I'm like, oh, fucking hell, what's going where? At least now I know. By the way, if you're using a lot of SDIs, and thank you to all the people that sent me this message when I was struggling with my SDIs, get yourself one of these tools because they're very helpful. All right, so what we actually done was to take all of the 3 cables from the constellation out of the constellation. They're still connected to the Video Hub, which is great, but these are 3 cables, and we actually need 3 cables minimum SDI ins for the HyperDeck 8K. So we're going to use these 3, connect them, and then change there as well. So interestingly enough, this 8K HyperDeck, they're labeled A, B, C. So we're going to keep the same naming convention. I didn't realize that. So on the green one, device ports, I'm just going to modify these. Instead of saying SDI in 1, I'll put A, B, C, D. So we change those. So now I can go back to the Blackmagic Video Hub 40x40, manage ports, SDI out 17, and selected. Yes, that was the, oh, sorry. You see, that's a mistake that I've done here. I should be on the outputs, not the inputs. So output 17. So you have to be very careful with basically how you input and output. And again, SDI out is basically a signal that's going out and into the SDI in of a different of a IO device. Right. So let's take port output 17, and that is connected correctly to the constellation 1ME, and the device IO port was SDI in 4. So now we can change this. Let's go to HyperDeck 8K green, and we'll select SDI in A. Yeah, we selected that, right? That's connected, and now I can go in here and update port, and voila. It's literally that simple, and you get the peace of mind that everything is documented. Whether you have short memory like myself and you forget what you plugged into what, or you have a colleague that needs to understand things, how you've done things, you now have documented that connectivity between that input device and the output port from the Video Hub. So now we'll connect the second HyperDeck Extreme, and we'll come back afterwards and we'll go through the magical step of routing a video signal to these recorders. Right, so now that we've plugged in both of our HyperDecks, the fun part starts. And that means that we get to, in the Video Hub, mention what we want to save in these HyperDecks. Now, the HyperDeck 8K can record an 8K footage, but it also can record up to 4K SDI video streams. So we're going to go into Blackmagic Video Hub. We managed to do the ports, and now we're moving into the routing matrix. So this is basically what outputs, what signals go into what inputs. We're going to go to routing matrix here. So I'm going to be looking for the outputs, and I know that I have the HyperDeck 8K, so I can just type here 8K. So we'll take the SDI in A, so the first SDI slot, and selected. Once I selected in here, you'll see that something changed here. So right now the output is selected, and I need to specify what input in the video hub I need to wire it up to. And actually we're going to do this real time. We're going to set it up here, and then we're going to set it up in the video hub in parallel. So we've selected that now is armed. So it's the same way as you would do in here. If I select it here, so we have output 17. If I select output 17, right? So this selection here right now, when I do in, that basically arms it. So whatever change I do here, it tells me if I want to assign that input to this output in the video hub. And it's the same way here. So now it's waiting for me to assign basically an input. And what input are we going to assign here? Well, as I mentioned, this is the HyperDeck 8K. We're going to send it the first camera, which is the white camera, the Blackmagic Studio Converter Cam 1. These are listed quite close here because this is in input 3, but if I had it way lower in the inputs, I can just type Studio, and it will bring me all of the items with Studio. So that makes it a lot easier to search for the inputs and basically assign. So now I can see that my Blackmagic Studio Converter Cam 1 is in input 3. As soon as I click here, there you go, you're getting that confirmation that these two are linked, and you get the message down here. And that means that I can also set it up here. So what I want is input 3, and I will do a take. That's all set right now. Now, currently you have to set them on the basically the tracking, the patch panel app, and also in your video hub. So you set it up here, and then you go into your video hub and set it up there as well. We are working towards in the future to allow you to connect through the network your own video hub to this basically routing device that you created, and use their APIs to do this action in the actual device as well. So then you don't have to do it in two places, because one is the actual action of connecting the ports physically, and the other one is for documentation purposes. So it gives you an easier way to navigate and understand the information and where everything links up. Now you also have a unlink here. So if I click on this unlink, it will just remove this connection that we've done here and just leave the port, the output port, not connected to any input port. Normally in these kind of like routing devices, you can have a single input source port, as in a signal coming in, going to multiple outputs. And that's what you're going to see here as well. This is nice. You can see the output ports on the left and the input ports of the video hub on the right, or your routing device. You also have this awesome diagram view. And notice while I'm switching between the list view and diagram view, it actually keeps your search. So you can see that I have 8K, and I have this list here, and Studio, and I have this inputs list here, and it keeps the same. This is a visual representation, but this also gives you a better understanding of what's connected where. Why? Because, for example, you can see that on the right here, it tells me that for this Studio Converter signal, I'm sending it out to the Ultimate 12 plus one more. In this case is the HyperDeck, because we just set it up. But you might be coming here and thinking, okay, well, what is that plus one more? So in here, you can actually understand this. So if I remove this here, and you'll see the diagram change, I can actually see what else is connected to the Studio Converter Cam 1. So I can see that is the Ultimate 12, and I can also see that it is the HyperDeck 8K. So that's a really nice way for you to be able to visualize when you have a signal everywhere it goes, especially with these switchers, these video hubs, these routing devices. When you have a signal coming in and it goes into multiple places, you want to understand what places this signal goes. From this diagram, you can also take other action except for searching for items. So as you search, you'll see that basically it filters items out. Either you can search on inputs or you can search on outputs, and that makes all of your activity a lot faster. You also notice the unlinking, so you can unlink from this screen as well. So you can pretty much do the same actions that you were doing in the list view in here as well. So you can unlink, but you can also connect. So let's look at the HyperDeck 8K. This is still the green screen and it's SDI in B. So this is the second port. I can also do the same linkage in this screen if you prefer the visual aspect of it. If I click here, you'll see a plus button. So if I click on this plus button, it will do a pop-up and it will basically show me this search, so I can search for the inputs. That is output 18, so I can go to output 18 and let's search for studio converter cam 2. So we want the basically SDI in B to receive the green screen footage of the second camera. So we'll assign this. That connection is saved, and you actually saw this now create a line connection. And I can also set it up here. And actually, I should have done that before setting it up, because now, I mean, I can see it. I can just go to it. So I can go here and let's see. This is the input port for in, and we'll do 4 take. Okay, so now it's set in the video hub as well. So as you can see, it gives you this grand visualization of what the video hub is actually wired up to, inputs and outputs and devices, which is quite important, because there's one thing, you could see the inputs and outputs in the video hub, but it will only show you output 1, output 2, output 3, output 5, right? So you will still see this connection, but you will see it basically just numbered, not, oh, an output 5 is connected to the Blackmagic Ultimat 12, the second unit, the foreground SDI in. So it gives you this much depth information that's super needed in studios. And then the other thing is, you don't get this. So basically you wouldn't be able to select an input in here and say, and show you all of the outputs that is connected to, right? Because it connects to multiple destinations, right? So source and destination. We might also in the future allow you to do source and destination custom labels for the routing device, because I know some people might be like input output, might be a bit confused about that. But give us some feedback if you want to be able to control what this ports column on the right is named and what this ports column on the left is named as well, and we can add customization there. This also tells you how many active connections you have here. That's pretty much about the diagram. So I want to show you something else, because although Patch Panel started as a routing device management system, we realized that we actually have a lot of devices in this studio that don't go through a patch panel, right, or a router or a signal hub, but actually connects just from an output to an input. And we decided to extend the functionality of our platform to also allow you that specific ability, which is directly connecting one device to another. So I'm in the IO devices section. And as I mentioned, the IO devices section is similar to the routing devices. You can go in and edit. We'll go into this Blackmagic Ultimat 12, and I can edit the details like with the IO. You've seen this earlier as well. And then I can also go to device ports. As I was showing you earlier, it shows you all of the ports and everything that's connected to the ports. And yeah, you can have at a glance view of here, oh, what's the mat? Oh, it's connected to Blackmagic Video Hub 40x40, but it's actually not connected to anything. And actually the fill is not connected to anything. It's at a glance, but it also can get messy. Like, look at this. The program of this Ultimat goes to a billion places. So we needed an easier way to basically visualize that. So we implemented the same diagram that you have in the routing devices. So you have the connection matrix here. You'll see similarities here, but also something a bit different. There's actually two things that are different from the routing hub. One is you can actually visualize what specific routing device that port on this device goes into, right? So we have the program, and I was talking about the program and how messy it looks on the device ports listing. Well, here, like with the matrix and the diagram in the routing hub, you can actually see where this SDI out port goes to. So this is going to a recorder because we're recording the composited footage. It also goes to the switcher. Again, it just shows you everything that's going on with this device with these ports, which is great. But there's something else that you notice in here, except for the video hub. So for example, let's say if you have multiple routing devices and this Ultimate, some of the ports go into the video hub 40 by 40, but some of them go into the, let's say 120 by 120. This is made for any type of ports that you want to track on your devices. But there's another thing that you can do here in this matrix for this device, which is connect any port on your IO device to another port on another IO device without a routing in the middle. And again, there's going to be so many occasions where you do that, where you have a device with multiple ports, inputs and output ports, or you might want a signal from a different device going into the input of this device. So in here, you can create these. So you can see the differentiation here. This shows a middle component, which explains that this is via Blackmagic Video Hub 40 by 40. This port, there's a wire going straight into a different device, in this scenario, CloudStor Max. You can connect directly when you click on the plus and select a device here. So you can select this available ports. It will show you what available ports you have to connect. And normally this is ports that haven't had anything linked up to them. So I can connect to this. And once I do that, yeah, you'll see this test second appearing. So it connected to it. And then I can also remove the connectivity. But yeah, that's about it for the functionality so far. We are going at light speed as we find out things, as we use it in our own studio and figure out, oh, but what about this? But what about this? We implement new features. That's how we build this first version, by just working with it, doing stuff, cabling in the studio, and realizing, oh, but we need this ability and this feature as well. And we'll continue that. A couple of other notable features of the patch panel. One, you can have multiple studios. So if you have multiple venues and you need to manage cables and devices on multiple venues, you can do that. You can create a new studio here. So for example, I have Masterwork Brighton, main studio. One, I can configure here. I can go into settings, change the name, specify what kind of what type of studio this is. Ours is virtual production, the address and description if I want to there, and save settings. But I can create another one and create studio, and once this is created, I can go into the settings again. Studio type will be virtual production, or whatever you want. You can have different studios for different bits. So sound, let's say soundstage. You can add the address and description and save, and now that's a soundstage. And then you can also add users to your studio. You'll probably have a team that needs access to all of these cabling, either just to see and understand what goes where, or you might have someone that manages all of the tech, all of the equipment in your studio, and you want that person to be able to wire things up and manage. So for example, on this, you can see it's still me. We're just testing with a couple of email addresses, but you can create a user and specify a role, either viewer, they don't have access to change anything, they can just see, visualize stuff. Editor, they can create devices, they can create ports, they can link different ports together. and admin, which will give them access to this page as well, this studio management page for that specific studio, so that they can change the settings as well as invite other users to this. So you might have multiple studios and you're the owner of this brand of studios, and you assign admins for every single studios that can manage their own devices and their own users that have access and their own cabling situation. That's pretty much it. There's a free version that you can use for free forever. The only limitation is you can't create multiple studios, and you can't invite users to manage your own devices and so on. And you have a limit of 100 ports. For small studios, I think that's plenty. That's enough if you're a one-man band and so on. And then we have a couple of plans if you want to do the bigger scale, multiple devices, users, managing, viewing, as well as multiple studios. So give it a try. Set it up, and if you have questions, we have a support button on the app that you can access and reach out to us. And again, we're going light speed with this, and we want to make sure that it's as good for you as possible.